Greetings to myself from Low South of This is LTV's podcast. My name is Craig, transmitted from the beautiful Sunday, North South Florida, and today's date is Sunday, August 5th, 2018. I'm going to talk about a few topics today, things in my mind, so I'm going to wing it as usual. So, let us begin. Ooh, alright. So hopefully everyone's having a good day today. Just chilling as usual indoors. Nice and hot out there. Typical August. Beautiful day. It rained pretty bad, but you know, this is how it goes. But we needed it. But it's very pleasant right now. Yeah, so I had a little interview with a comrade of mine and a group from Revolutionary Alliance. He had a show called Vanguard Podcast and Blog Talk Radio. Talked about person we met, Tim Canova, who was an independent running in the 23rd district of Florida, and yeah, it was pretty cool. We have expect some differences, however we have things in common, especially talk about the federal banking system, Federal Reserve actually, war on drugs, war on terror, and mass incarcerations, which we have that in common, which is good. So that's a great start, and we can build from there instead of crucifying. If he has certain proposal I may disagree with, I can share him the information instead of calling his bluff. So he wants to represent the people the best he can, and that's a good thing because we all know that the folks in Washington D.C. are out of touch with their constituents, and it's very disturbing. And yeah, it was an honor to meet him. Went to his do a little canvassing in Surfside, which is north of Miami Beach, but very pleasant, I have to say. So we hit that off pretty well. I'd like to thank my brother Al Suarez for making that happen. Yeah, before I go, I'd like to take a shout out to one of my fallen brothers. He just passed away, I believe it was today. Bill Halligan. He was a union stagehand from New York, Local 1, and came down to South Florida. Good union brother. Always have a pleasure talking to him. We had good conversations, and just recently just died today. Just found this out when I was having breakfast. So it is morose, but gotta keep living. And my condolences go out to their families, their loved ones, to all my fellow brothers and sisters in my local. Another one has fallen, and may his soul be forever free. Alright, so I want to be addressing a few things. Actually, before I do that, we talked about Tim Canova and what's going on in Venezuela, Al and I. And it's very disturbing what's going on. There's a claim that it was a drone attack. Some people were saying it. There's even reports that some people down there are being censored. And there was even accusations that it was only a gas explosion at one of the apartment complexes. So we have him and I, Al and I, we do have to say about any form of imperialism is unacceptable, CIA attacks, etc. But some of the patterns since past practice and sanctions and CIA's past history, those are big possibilities. And I've been telling people for a long time, the United States is a patsy nation. It could be the one world order, oligarchs, cabal, doesn't matter. And I'm not being lovey-dovey with Maduro or anything like that. But the people in that country has to make their own decisions. Creating sanctions on a country is an act of war, regardless. And I'm against that. Like tangling alliances. Align with nobody, with no one, and trade with all. That's what that was like the original concept of when the United States became a nation after the war with England. And of course, the French implemented a French infiltrators may not like it. government infiltrators because a lot of people were involved, Illuminati and so forth, according to some of the writings from Washington. But we got to stop being an empire. And a lot of good people are suffering from both ends. And I know I'm not digressing, but it's okay. It's just me. All right. Well, speaking of the military-industrial complex, and this came from yesterday from the globalresearch.ca, entitled "The Super Rich and the Rabbit Hole of Military Spending: The Two 500-Pound Gorillas in the Room." It is by Philip A. Ferrugio. As it reads here, I don't know about you out there, but whenever I drive around my city and surrounding area of perhaps 250,000 people, I notice an increased congestion and near crazy drivers. It keeps getting worse, and some of the blame has to be pointed out at the uncertainty of our times. You don't realize, to be an accounting genius or historical scholar, to realize when you are on the receiving end of the shaft. This example is happening everywhere and all around a lot of places, so he's not the only one. The facts are out there, even though the embedded mainstream media does its best to keep them from you. We live in an empire whereupon over half of our hard-earned federal tax money goes down the rabbit hole of military spending. That's the first gorilla in the room. It sits there smiling at you because it knows that its appetite is being satisfied. As you needed safety net, it's shredded to bits. How many out there understand that this first gorilla needs over $700 billion each and every year? Some researchers have figured that out at a cool $1 trillion. Imagine if even a quarter of the money went to establish a national health system to dwarf even the one of the Brits have had for decades. Imagine going to any doctor you want and having surgery you needed. Along with saving your teeth with comprehensive dental care, with $180 billion going into that kitty. Imagine how little it will cost you and me to pay for such care. Oh no, the gorilla is growling and pounding his giant paws. The second gorilla is also very content now. He knows that the super rich existence is safe because Uncle Sam is in his pocket. How many of you realize that the super rich had a top federal tax bracket of 90% to deal with in the 50s and 60s? During the 1970s, the top bracket never went below 70%. In 1981, under Reagan, the top rate dropped to 50%. Now it's 37% for income over $400,000 plus. This does not mean that anyone actually pays that amount. No, with a good accountant and plenty of deductions, even multi-billionaire Mitt Romney acknowledged that he paid at around 15%. Get it? Plus the fact that someone's earning, let us say $500K a year, is put in the same bracket as a Romney or a Bill Gates. Thus, the mega millionaire and the billionaire gorilla are happier than a pig in shite. Meanwhile, back at the prison ranch, you and me and all the millions of working stiffs out there who make up most of the 99+% have to subsidize this government spending with our sweat and tears, maybe some blood added to the mix. Every dollar we earn is taxed at the payroll tax rate of over 7.5%, the same for what the super rich must contribute. Plus, the Social Security tax stops at income of $128K a year. So the fat cats and wannabe fat cats earn the sky's the limit and are only responsible for $128K of income. Imagine that ceiling was extended all the way up to the sky. How much added revenue our treasury would have. This could be used to secure and expand that safety net. Another idea is to create the mega millionaire flat surtax. Let us say 50% of any income over $1 million a year, leaving the first million to be taxed at the current rate, which would include bonuses in all stocks and bonds income as soon as either is cashed in. Translated Jeff Bezos. a multi-billionaire who makes less than 100K a year in salary. His stocks is worth billions. So when Jeff one day decides to cash in or transfer his holdings to someone else, the flat surtax kicks in. What could occur in a foundation was a mix of socialism and capitalism? Well, all major industries that are vital to the public health and well-being would be nationalized. Imagine if banking, energy, pharma, healthcare, defense, real estate were owned and operated by the citizens through the local and federal government. No more access profits from our taxes going for mortgages, residential, commercial, real estate rentals, doctor visits, and medicines, home heating and electric surgeries, dental care, weapons systems, and military needs, all working at the non-profit or low profit. Socialism and Adam Smith's capitalism would see a nurturing of Main Street small businesses. If it can happen, at first, we can get rid of those two smelly 500-pound gorillas. Imagine for a minute if all small businesses with less than 100 employees, for argument's sake, had a moratorium on the payroll tax contribution from both employee and employer for the first 20K of employee wages. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. But companies over 100 million just having a moratorium on employee contributions. Think how A, $1,500 or $1,600 a year tax-free can be used for the worker and his or her boss, and B, this would get rid of most of the off-the-books employment that many mom-and-pop businesses are forced to utilize to stay above water. Ditto for the workers. With our government running the weapon and military equipment industries, the trumpet for more phony wars and occupations would be muffed and a great deal. All those private Pentagon influence lobbyists would need to get out and get a real job. We could use that money wasted on profits of the few to be used as I mentioned above. I think about that, and with local communities, non-profit mortgages, banks, imagine how many current renters would be able to afford a home or apartment of their own. At the risk of translate into overhead costs. You want real economic stimulus? Well, with more new homes and apartments needed, the housing material market will be overflowing with energy and plenty of jobs needed. Who needs the super rich? I don't, do you? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Gotta give them some little credit on that. And of course, about the whole banking system too. Let's get rid of the fiat propaganda, right? That'd be a fantastic start. One of those things I look at. What if? And that's why I do support folks as a start, whether it's gold or silver. So I like silver instead of gold, which is understandable. But we gotta get out of that fiat bracket and bogus BS taxes, I call it, frivolous taxes. These luxurious pigeonholes we see building around the country, including South Florida, is nothing more than a deception. So what's the key for that? You call that capitalism? Not in an open free market basis. It's one of those things you have to really look at. Because, hey, one of those can be at odds. And just have to see it that way, right? It just, one of those things I get really... Sorry about that. I just want some of those times pretty cockeyed, I would say, right? Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm just never mind. Screw that. I was gonna try to add something to it, but maybe another time. Well, one of those things you gotta, like I say, hey, get rid of the garbage, get rid of the empire. we'll be better off, I would say, right? And how about getting rid of the Affordable Care Act and the HMO Act of 1973 that made one of the reasons why it made healthcare a disaster, and Affordable Care Act is unaffordable to be exact. So more deceptions than usual. All right, enough of that. The next one here, just a little bit mellow today, so I'm not gonna go too crazy. This one came off the Blaze earlier. Actually yesterday. It's a reference to the Parkland killer, or the suspect, that is. And it's the Three Stooges, Israel. I think his name is Prince, from Obama's buddy, who was the Broward County superintendent, and Flip Flopper Scott. Yippee yappy and yahoo, right? Okay, this one here. Says here, bombshell report: Parkland killer asked for help months before massacre, but officials ignored him. Oh, really? Let's see what they have to say about this. This is by Chris Enlow. A new report detailing the FBI, the February 14th shooting massacre at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, revealed the 6 to 19-year-old killer asked officials for help months prior to the attack, but the school just denied him the assistance he requested. I think I heard about this before, but let's keep on going. Reports come nearly 6 months after the killer murdered 14 children and 3 teachers. 4 months questions about the school's district culpability in the tragedy have gone unanswered. But they still want to blame the National Rifle Association, right? Even though I'm critical of that organization at times, but this is pretty damn ludicrous. I'll proceed. What are the details? The Sun Sentinel reported, there's a link for that too, the year leading up to the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, the killer was stripped of the therapeutic services disabled students need, leaving him to navigate his schooling as a regular student despite mounts of evidence that he wasn't. School districts failed to properly handle the killer's behavioral issues were revealed in a report commissioned by the Broward Public School System. Broward Circuit Judge Elizabeth Shire on Friday ordered the report to be released, but with heavy redactions. Censor, censor, censor. However, the Sun Sentinel managed to obtain a full, unedited redacted report. The report, authored by the Collaborative Educational Network of Tallahassee, concluded the Broward School District made 2 glaring missteps when handling the killer's behavioral issues, ultimately failing to comply with laws on the treatment of students with disabilities. According to Sun Sentinel, those 2 instances were district officials misstated the killer's educational options during his junior year when faced with the possibility of being removed from MSD, leading him to refuse special educational opportunities afforded to troubled students. When the killer asked the school officials to return to the therapeutic environment of Cross Creek School, a school for troubled students, Broward officials did not follow through. Okay, Superintendent, we're going to say about that, right? Because of the district's missteps, the killer had no school counseling or other special education services in the 14 months leading up to the Valentine's Day tragedy, the Sun Sentinel reported. This means that he was treated as a regular student despite his needs for special care. After the district failed to follow through, the killer dropped out in February 2017. Actually got expelled, if I'm correct, and purchased the AR-15. He later used this year's tragedy, the Daily Beast reported. And remember, just to let you folks know, in Broward County's ordinance 18-96 called a local option. With Broward County, you have a 5-day waiting period when purchasing any firearm. On the state level is different, but the whole 21 over thing and 3-day waiting period in the state of Florida statute, totally unconstitutional because it violates Article 1, Section 8 of the Florida Constitution. Because if you wanted to have an amendment, you got to go to Article 12 of the same document. Do your homework, okay? I said this enough times. Does the report align with district official claims? According to Sun Sentinel, in the past, Broward School Superintendent Robert Runcie, that's Barack Obama's buddy, by the way, said when Cruz turned 18 and rejected special education replacement, the district could no longer provide him with the services given to students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. But the consultant's report reveals for the first time that Cruz himself requested to return to special education, and his request went nowhere. How did the killer legal team respond? Gordon Weeks, the spokesman for the killer's public defender legal team, told the Sun Sentinel his attempt to district to whitewash their mistakes. I think that the report is an attempt by the school board to absolve itself on any liability or responsibility for all missed opportunities that they had in this matter, he said. Alright, so I'm going to find out who is a member of the school board that supported this whitewash, because as far as I'm concerned, their rear ends are done. I'll vote their rear ends out myself. I live in Broward County. I can make that statement. And that's why even when not my sheriff, Scott Israel, want to blame the National Rifle Association and Donald Trump, which includes his pathetic cornball her conformist. And you talk to a man that doesn't even worship the president. I'm not one of those either. Plain unacceptable defense mechanized rhetoric is null and void. And Broward School wants to whitewash their mistakes, and they want to point the finger at the other direction. That's why I tell everyone, witch hunting for cowards. In other words, wussies. I have contempt for them, and they are the enemy of society, a free society. And I'm not afraid to say it to their faces, because I don't care what they think of me. They're nothing more than a bunch of corrupt parasites based on their actions. So, I'd like to thank the Sun Sentinel for putting this out. Even though I'm pretty critical of mainstream newspapers, at least have the courage to pursue the matter. Alright. Next one here came from Activist Post. Originally at Activist Post? Yeah. Or, Activist Post. No, Daily Bell. Excuse me. That's not Activist Post. It's by Joe Jarvis. It was entitled, "Who Needs Borderless Nations If You Have Borderless People?" And we'll see what Jarvis has to say about this. The market thrives on competition, and governments are inherited monopolies. By its nature, a government monopolies certain powers within particular borders. But now, more than ever, governments must compete with each other for residents. The best and brightest have options, and they can bounce around to countless jurisdictions before they find the right fit. The title of an article from TeleCrunch summarizes the trend. Digital nomads are hiring and firing their governments. From crypto millionaires in Puerto Rico to digital nomads in hotspots like Thailand, Indonesia, and Colombia, there's increasingly view that there is a marketplace for governance, and we hold power as consumers. Much like choosing cereal from the breakfast department of a supermarket, highly skilled professionals are now comparing the government online and making clear choices based on which ones are most convenient and have the greatest amenities available. Of course, immigration is nothing new, but in past centuries it was a slow process, and there were few realistic options. Now online tools that exist making comparing possible destinations easy. Job-particle lists of jobs all over the world, but it also offers tools to help people to make the move. You get the support in making the move, so that the change isn't so foreign. They focus on companies who are searching the globe for the right talent and are ready and willing to bring that talent to them. Nomad List lets you explore destinations with filters for all sorts of criteria. It offers a database of cities and with countless data points of a network of other digital nomads. These and other tools are assisting the consumers to find the best fit government. In response, governments are finally fleeing the market pressures of their policies. Governments, at least some of them, are realize that the generators of wealth today increasingly have infinite choice about where they live. A little more friction in the immigration process from an extra visa form could mean hundreds of digital nomads simply switch their plane tickets somewhere else, depriving the country of innovative thoughts and critical reviews. When countries see that their policies are attracting more investment, more skilled workers, and more tax-paying residents, these policies are expanded. And when they see their bureaucracies respelling those benefits, they have an incentive to change. and neighboring countries will move to compete with these policies. Estonia is leading the charge in e-citizenship and blockchain governance. But in the same region, historically authoritarian Belarus had created a special economic zone to incubate digital currencies in each other tech companies. Thank you, digital nomads. Digital nomads are like the avant-garde of choosing your own government. They are pioneers because they forged the path before it was clearly laid out. Digital nomads travel the world testing out various locations which have the best internet, easy streets to navigate, or the most welcoming locals. There are millions of different criteria you can consider when deciding where to live, and government policies are a huge subset of factors. The tax rate, ease of doing business, government corruption, and partial judicial system regulations workers. Digital nomads are far ahead of the curve. Instead of trying in futility to change a government they were born under, they simply find one that matches better their needs. Don't work, just go around them. That's like how they're doing it. The brain gain. That brain gain is completely new development for much of the world. Brain drain mostly to the United States. It has been distorting the developing world for decades in the post-World War II global economy. No other country has mastered the pipeline of talent that America has built. Every year, millions of international students come to the U.S. and attend American universities. Many of these international students will ultimately stay and build a life in their adopted country. Other countries have watched this pattern with envy, but they felt powerless to stop it. That is, until recently, blame Trump, blame strapped research, and university budgets, blame awareness of American culture, but there is a sense among politicians across the world that the best talent is suddenly available for the taking. Now, these governments are offering increasingly generous immigration terms to attract the next generation of their startup, research, and professional workforces. Unfortunately, there are still quite a limited number of options available. There are about 195 countries on Earth, and you won't even want to consider half of them. A digital nomad could even lead to there being more jurisdictions, if not more countries. Special economic zones are areas where the normal rules don't apply. They have a different tax rates, regulations, and other rules. They are usually used to attract investment and kickstart economic growth in the region. They could also attract digital nomads, and they compete with other SEZs to attract the best worker. And with the economic success of these restriction-free zones, it's only a matter of time until more entire countries try it out. I asked in one article, what if Estonia would find it more profitable to sell citizenship than to charge taxes? The type of situation could quickly open up the competition / taxes, reform oppressive policies, and the policies are endless. We are truly on the brink of an exciting upset in governance. Ancient and oppressive standard is about to come crashing down. Just as other industries have been revolutionized by new technology, the marketplace for government is finally emerging. Interesting indeed. That's one thing I gotta look at. That's one thing I gotta say. Wow. So, something to think about, right? Absolutely. Pretty exciting. It drives those taxaholic nations insane. Probably especially in China as well. They like to tax everybody. So, I would like, hey, I say give it a thumb. I say go for it. Check it out. I'm about to look at that as well. No bad list. And see what countries I can pick. Pretty damn cool indeed. Yeah, one of those things I gotta look at is, hey, find it hilarious. It drives the government crazy in the New World Order as well. Well, like, always observe responsibly, to be exact. Alright. Do one more here. This one came from Land Destroyer Report by Joseph Thomas, New Eastern Outlook. Soros-funded HRW defends terrorist accomplices in Thailand. That's the Human Rights Watch, huh? Alright, so Mr. Thomas has to say about this. In 2010, Thailand was the scene of a smaller scale foreign back destabilization similar to those carried out by the United States in Europe against a nation like Libya, Syria, Yemen, and Ukraine from 2011 onward. Between April and May of that year, nearly 100 would die and many more injured when U.S.-backed former Prime Minister Daskin Shinawatra attempted to seize back power through violent street protests, armed insurrection, terrorism, and nationwide arson. Just has been done in nations like Libya, Syria, Yemen, and Ukraine. Human Rights Watch, funded by convicted financial criminal George Soros' Open Society Foundation, would leverage human rights in an attempt to depict the Thai government as cracking down on what it attempted to depict as peaceful, unarmed protesters. Yet, in HRW's own 2011 report titled Dissent in Chaos, Thailand's 2010 register protests in the government crackdown, it would have to admit that protesters were only mostly unarmed, and euphemism used to cover up in the fact that heavily armed militants were present and were the primary trigger for the weeks of violence that unfolded. The report would slip in admissions to this in between lopsided condemnation of the Thai military's response to these mostly unarmed protesters, including the description of the first episode of violence to break out on April 10th, 2010. Yeah, if you see what I'm saying there. Pretty interesting indeed, right? Absolutely. Alright, so let's continue on. The report would admit my emphasis. As the army attempted to move on the camp, they were confronted by well-armed men who fired M16 and AK-47 assault rifles at them, particularly at the Kawa intersection of the Raja Mon Road. They were also grenades from MA-79s and threw M67 hand grenades at the soldiers. News footage and videos taken by protesters and tourists show several soldiers lying unconscious and bleeding on the ground, as well as armed men operating with a high degree of coordination and military skills. According to some accounts, they specifically aimed at the commanding officer of the army units involved in the crowd dispersal operations, sowing panic among the soldiers. Human Rights Watch investigations concluded this group consisted of black shirts deployed among UDD protesters. HRW would further describe the black shirts as members of these armed groups were captured on photographs and film, armed with various military weapons, including AK-47 and M16 assault rifles, as well as M79 grenade launchers during their clashes with the government and security forces. HRW report includes several reports made by Western journalists at the time, many of them of whom would later downplay or cover up the role of the black shirts during the 2010 violence, rewriting HRW's own account history, despite the admissions by HRW that the 2010 violence was a result of the Thai military responding to heavily armed terrorists operating in the streets of the nation's capital. It has since depicted in 2010 violence as a brutal and unwarranted military crackdown, often omitting any mention of Shinawatra's armed terrorists. The most recent example of this is a July 23, 2018 HRW article titled Silencing a Witness to Thailand's Deadly 2010 Crackdown. This witness was an unabashed supporter of Thaksin Shinawatra and his violent street front, the United Front for Democracy Against Dictatorship, or UDD, or Red Shirts. And there's a thing here by Sauni. Injustice in Thailand, authorities use flimsy charges of silencing those who witnessed a military shooting in 2010 crackdown on a red protest. The picture of Natia Rian Miwangpa, used by HRW in this July 23rd article, depicts her flashing a three-finger salute used by the U.S.-funded and anti-government agitators currently attempting to undermine and overthrow the Thai government and reinstall Shinawatra to power. HRW would claim after she resisted intimidation by the Thai military to stay silent the life of Nataya Ween Rangba, a violent nurse who witnessed the shooting of civilians and unarmed supporters of protesting red shirts by soldiers during the 2010 political confrontations in Bangkok, has turned to hell. HRW will not link to his 2011 report, indifferent to the possibility that readers might read HRW's own admissions that the violence was in fact triggered by armed terrorists, not a military crackdown. It also concludes by claiming, so long as Nithihita remains locked up, there is little prospect for justice for the victim of one of Thailand's bloodiest episodes. Worse still, soldiers and their commanders will have good reason to believe that the next time around they can get away with murder. Yet with violence HRW is referring to, and that Mirangpa claims to have witnessed, is depicted in concise detail in HRW's own 2011 report, involving multiple gun battles between Thai troops and pro-General Rocha terrorists around the downtown temple of Puntan Wanaram. HRW in their 2011 report would admit the safe zone at the temple was not at the safe location. What Fathom Wanaram is very close to the Central World Shopping Complex, with red shirts. Red shirt artists were torching at the same time as crowds were fleeing into the temple. Throughout the afternoon, the evening of May 19th, sporadic gunfire and clashes took place in the immediate vicinity of the temple. Several foreign journalists they said they saw UDD militants, some of them armed, on the street outside the temple between 2 and 4 p.m. that day. HRW reports would include testimony of Adam Buncombe, a journalist for the Independent. He would be quoted as saying, around lunchtime, the red shirt leaders said that it was over and asked people to go home. I went out and probably got the temple around 3:30 to 4 p.m. Things were called then, but tense. Some of the malls had been set on fire. Then we heard very clear shooting. Other reporters said that the troops and red shirts were shooting at each other. We remained at the rear of the temple. We knew there was a curfew, so we started heading out, but we paused and went back to try to get a phone number of a monk so we can call him later. As we were leaving around 5:30, the shooting got going again. My colleagues ran to the back, but I was caught in the front, taking cover with other people. I remembered that I should get out of there. I was watching the number of injured pouring into the temple from the outside. I don't know how I was hit or where the bullet came from. I was lying down. I could not really see gun battle. I could only hear it. There was a vast gunfire outside. The red shirts with guns, I think, were out in the streets, maybe when the army was firing back at them. Some of what was coming back to the temple. I could see some bullets ricocheting off the walls. It's hard to know. I could see where some of these shots were hitting, and would therefore have to guess some of them were coming from the west. In other words, the shooting around the temple was not a crackdown. It was clearly a gun battle between armed terrorists and Thai troops. The resulting injuries was the case throughout. The entirety of the violence was a result of bystanders caught in the crossfire. HRW 2011 admit as much. HRW today is attempting to gloss over this fact, abusing human rights advocacy to depict security operations against heavily armed terrorists waging war against governmental troops in the nation's capital as a deadly crackdown is transparently inaccurate and intentionally dishonest. HRW, a foreign-funded front with a transparent agenda of leveraging human rights advocacy to advance the political agendas of special interest funding it, it is clearly revisiting and revising its own account of this new episode of 2010 violence for political reasons, transforming Miwangpa from a supporter of Shinawatra at his terrorist proxies into political prisoners and alleged victims of the current Thai government, which HRW clearly opposes and works daily to undermine. It is done in the same vein as depicting ultra-right fascists in Ukraine as a democratic and hardcore terrorists in Syria as freedom fighters. HRW's dishonesty is not the only danger to the stability of nations alike. Thailand inviting future episodes of instability and violence is a danger to legitimate human rights advocacy everywhere. It is a danger a nation cannot afford to ignore. While arresting or expelling such groups is the most direct method, creating wider public awareness of real human rights advocacy versus politically motivated use by organizations like Human Rights Watch would far be more effective. It would also be justified to strip organizations like Human Rights Watch of any credentials it may hold to regard to human rights advocacy, revising Thai non-governmental organization NGO laws to force foreign-funded organizations to provide more transparency into their funding, and having those clearly engaged in political meddling register as lobbyists instead of NGOs would deny them the opportunity to cry censorship while drastically undermining their perceived legitimacy. Thailand possessing its own English language news in the same vein as Russia's RT or China's CGTN would give. The Thailand's ability to have its own side of the story told, a story will not only contribute to Human Rights Watch but also expose the challenges HRW's abusive human rights advocacy. That was Joseph Thomas, New Atlas contributor and New Eastern Outlook and all that. Hey, and it is a fact because I did my homework on it. They are they get funded by the OSF, Open Source Foundation, which is a Soros group. And many people say, hey, you got Soros on the left and you got Sheldon Adelson on the right. Hey, look at that. Birds of a feather flock together. This is why, my friends, we gotta always look at these things a lot more thorough and accurate. When it comes to these subject matters, accuracy is essential. Never focus it on face value. And now looks like Human Rights Watch is being exposed once again that they have no merit to the stories they claim. So I always give people this advice. Do your homework before jumping the gun. And I say this in good faith. We've all been swindled one way or the other, including myself. So stay vigilant and don't belly up. And that is it. Cool. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share through your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You can just search engine my name, Looking Luck with the number 3, or Looking Luck with Roman numeral 3 on any search engine. You'll find me at sites like Facebook, Twitter, Google+. You can find me at all these other sites. Just type it in. Don't be shy. I got minds.com. I'm on One Way. And please, send your views, including YouTube. And that's to give you all those areas. In addition, you can email me at lookingluck3@gmail.com, or to encrypted ones that has a Proton Mail account, lookingluck03@protonmail.com. All right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance helps for the soul can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.